All right, so there we go. This is what I have planned today. Let's see how far it's going to be successful. So I have taken up the titles of the various sections of whatever we have studied in computer networks so far from day one. So let's see how we can recall the concepts which we have studied so far, right? All right. So we will start with the basics. So we started learning about what is the network core. When you have the word called network core, you have got important devices like router, switches, then hub, and so on. So we know router is represented by this symbol, and switch is generally represented by this symbol, and hub normally is represented by the square. I'm sorry, but it's going to be square, but it will go. And we also have understood the differences among the routers, switches, and hub. When we talk about the switch, when you send a unicast message, if you send a unicast message, it is going to send as a unicast message. If it is a hub, when you send a unicast message, it is going to broadcast it, right? When it is a switch, when you send a broadcast message, it will broadcast. If it is a router, when you send a broadcast message, it blocks the broadcast message because unless it is configured that way, this broadcast message is not going to escape the router. Right? So we know these basics. So we have learned about these routers, switches, hub. They all are called as intermediary devices, right? They form the core part of network, and we could talk about the speed of such core devices. We have even spoken about 1 gigabits per second and 10 gigabits per second as the speed of these devices, right? So, and these devices generally, unless otherwise decided or specified, these devices are not going to initiate data communication, right? They only forward the data communication from one place to another place. That's about the network core. When you have the network edge, we all have the edge devices. What are the edge devices? You got your personal computer, you got your switch, maybe IP phone, you may have the IP phone, then the printers, right? These all are the edge devices. Right? We also have learnt about this. These edge devices generally they initiate the data communication, and the data communication normally terminates at these edge devices, right? So that's about the basics of your core and edge devices. Along with that, we also have got the cables, okay, or in other words, we call it as physical medium. If it's a plural, it's physical media. If we want to recall the physical media, it will take a long time, but still you have got something called a coaxial cable, a UTP cable, shielded twisted pair cable, a fiber optics cable, then Wi-Fi, that is the radio signals. All right, so these are all some of the different media. Some of them are called as guided media. When you have the physical cables connecting two devices, they are generally called as guided media. Okay, GUIDED, guided media, and obviously the rest are called as unguided media, right? So these are all about the different cables. You also should remember the speed of the cables, whether UTP is better or STP is better or coax is needed. Generally, coaxial cable is used in the television media, but unshielded twisted pair and shielded twisted pairs are used in the local area network. Generally their speed is in 100 megabits per second. You can even have 1 gigabits per second and so on. They also have limited distance of 100-meter. Yeah, these all are known to us. Some of the fundamental concepts, right? So the next, moving on, we got the access network. When you talk about the access network, you must recall. Probably I take another tab. Yeah. So when you talk about the access network, you must recall something called digital subscriber line. Yeah. So you got the DSL. It also has got DSL modem and DSL AM. um, multiplexer, right? So DSL modem, then DSL AM, right? So and it also has its own upstream speed, right? It also has got its upstream speed and downstream speed. You know whether it is using in band or out of band is known to you. Then you have got hybrid fiber coaxial cable where fiber comes to a specific point. From then coaxial cable takes up, right? Hope you remember about this. So you have got the fiber node, and it's a combination. It's a hybrid of fiber and fiber to the home takes up the fiber cable running to your device. Okay, running to the device at your house at the modem. Okay, it comes till the modem, and then you are getting the connectivity for your devices. This is about the fiber to the home. What else have we got? Yes, we have got 802.11. That is the IEEE standard for your Wi-Fi. So that is very important. We also have spoken about the leased line connection and satellite communication. All right. So these all are coming under the access networks. What is that access network? Which provides you the facility or the opportunity to connect with the internet. All right. So where your machine is directly having connection with, that is called access network. All right. What comes then? We have got the packet switching and circuit switching concepts. So what is exactly happening in the packet switching? All right. So suppose you have got your source machine here and you got your destination machine here. Please remember, I'm not teaching again. Just would like to recall certain points because the time is very, very limited. Right. So these two are connected through a series of routers. We'll take that logic. All right. So these are the routers. So routers are interconnected this way. All right. So if we take this as the source, these are the destination. What happens in the case of circuit switching? When you talk about the circuit switching between the source and the destination, a leased line is established. A dedicated path is established. For instance, the path may be taking this way. Okay. So this may be the path which is available for this circuit switching communication to happen. So if the source is sending in, let me say, um, 5 such packets. All these 5 packets are taking this path to reach this destination. All right, this is about circuit switching. And what is the case of packet switching? No, we don't have such dedicated path existing. One packet may take this route to reach the destination. The other packet may take this route to reach the destination, and they all can be reassembled at the receiver side, right? So what happens in the case of circuit switching? You need a dedicated path. In other words, the bandwidth requirement. Okay, so it normally demands, I need this much bandwidth needed, right? Or probably for my communication I require at least this much bandwidth. So that demand will be there, and also the other quality of service parameter in terms of reliability and so on. What happens in the case of packet switching? No, in packet switching the packets may take different path, and generally in packet switching the routers are using a concept called store and forward. So router takes these packets and then forwards to the destination. That is why it is called a store and forward. It also implicates some delay. If you could recall what we have spoken, we took the best example of restaurant. Okay, so when you talk about something called reservation, right, you are able to reserve the seat and then you go and have a treat for your friend. Then it comes under circuit switching, which means you need to call them up, you need to book the slot, and you have to go at that time, and then you have to use the space. What happens in the case of unreserved? You just go there. If there is space, you use it. Otherwise you are going to wait and take up. All right. So there are some complexities involved in the case of circuit switching, but there are some delays which can happen in the packet switching based on the network congestion which are happening, or the traffic on the network, right? So both have its own advantage as well as disadvantage, and this is not related to TCP. Please remember, I have spoken this already. What else you have got in the packet switching and circuit switching? Mm, yeah, so packet switching, circuit switching normally suffered with call setup. What is that call setup? Every individual link, okay, we have got the source and the destination. This is becoming source, this is becoming destination. it has got the destination, source and destination. So every local link, a call has to be set up, minimum bandwidth has to be demanded, and other quality of service parameters have to be set. All right, so it takes little time for the communication to start. All right, but otherwise, once the communication starts, it's going to get its own way. Nobody is going to interfere in that way. All right, that is about your packet switching and circuit switching. I think it's the time for us to remember our frequency division multiplexing and time division multiplexing, okay, FDM and TDM. Right. This also we have learned using the traffic on a highway, right? So if I take this as the highway, okay, okay, assume that this is this is the direction the crowd has to move, the traffic has to move. On the opposite side, okay, you have got the other side, okay. This is going to be opposite side, and you got the median here. Okay, so the packets are traveling this way. Now you have got a car here, car 1, let me say car 1. If I got a car here, if it is car 2, now car 1 and car 2, they use the frequency division multiplexing here. What does it mean? This uses this lane 3, or this uses lane 1, and lane 2, and lane 1 and 4 are empty at present. 2 and 3 are occupied. Right? So this is called frequency division multiplexing. Then what do you mean by time division multiplexing? Okay, let me take another car here. Assume that this may be a lorry. Okay, so this lorry is also moving this direction. Now look at this space. Okay, if you look at this space, this lorry has crossed this maybe at 10 o'clock, and this car is crossing maybe at 10:01. Okay, this is called time division multiplexing. Same frequency band, but the different sources or different devices are using the same bandwidth at different time. Okay, that is called time division multiplexing. But if you look at the frequency division multiplexing, they all use separate bands, okay, separate path for them. This is called frequency division multiplexing. The best example for frequency division multiplexing, again, probably were frequency modulation radio, okay, FM radio. Right? So FM radio uses different bandwidth for them. So everyone uses, every radio station uses their own frequency bandwidth. They will go, but at 7 o'clock there may be a comedy program, at 7:30 there may be a song related program, at 8 o'clock there could be news. They all use time division in the same band. Okay, so different programs can be the example of time division multiplexing, but the whole of FM is going to be your frequency division multiplexing. So this one you should remember when you talk about the circuit switching and packet switching specifically. What else you have got? Yeah, you have got the networks of network, that is called ISPs. We haven't bothered much about ISPs, but we all remember that there are multiple different ISPs. You got the access ISP somewhere here. You got the core and the edge devices, so they all are interconnected. Then they are getting the connection from one ISP. So you should remember the interconnection of these ISPs. That is what we call it as network of networks. Otherwise, I don't think ISP has got much of the technical things when you look at the first unit. All right. So what have we spoken so far? We have spoken about this. Yes, we have recalled. Thankfully, this is what we have done. Next comes your delay in packet switching network. Yes, I think it's worth we spend little time in delays and loss also. Okay, what are the different kinds of delay in packet switching network? The first one we can talk about queuing delay. Queuing delay. Forgive me if I write the spelling wrong. So queuing delay. Then you have got the processing delay. Then you got your transmission delay, and then the propagation delay. All right, so these are the four kinds of delay, and you all should know what is this queuing delay all about, right? So if this is a toll booth, okay, let me not use the word toll booth. This is a router, okay. Maybe let me say router 1, and you got the router 2 here, and these two are interconnected, and a packet comes in. Okay, once the packet comes in, and this packet has to be opened by the router one, and then the decision has to be taken whether the packet has to be sent this direction or this direction. Okay, so queuing delay normally varies. We also have learned that queuing delay is a big headache because queuing delay cannot be predicted. It is all depending on how many packets are awaiting in the queue in front of you, and then how much time the device takes to process it. All right, so if you are at the head of the queue, queuing delay is zero. All right, if you are just standing second in the queue or third in the queue, then all your previous packets have to be processed before you are getting processed. So queuing delay normally is unpredictable generally. All right, so that is about queuing delay. We also know what is queuing delay. Then one is the processing delay, how much time the device takes to open up the packet, finds out where the packet has to be pushed, and then prepare the packet for the next transmit. Okay, this much process is happening in terms of processing delay. Next comes the transmission delay. If transmission delay, normally we have learned some formula, right? So transmission delay is denoted by, if you say probably T. Okay, let me say delay transmission. Okay, let me say like this. So delay transmission is normally calculated L by R. Remember this formula L by R, where L is the size of the packet in bits. For example, if your packet is 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Assume that this packet is having 10 bits. If each of them are 1 bit, okay, 0, 1, 2, up to 10, up to 9. So there are 10 bits. So if your packet contains 10 bits, then your length is, no, the length of the packet is 10 bits. Okay, R normally talks about the transmission speed. Okay, transmission speed is denoted by bits per second, B by S. Okay, so or Mbps by second or kilobytes per second. It could be anything, but generally it is bits per second. So there could be questions in calculating the transmission delay. Okay, so in order to find the transmission delay, you should have the length in bits and R, that is the bandwidth or the transmission rate of the link by in bits per second. All right, please remember, if this formula is bits per second, the length also should be bits per second. Sometimes the question could be, what will you do if you have to send, what is the transmission delay if the size of the packet is 8 bytes and the transmission rate is 100 Mbps. Okay, now you should know how to calculate it. Okay, now it talks in bytes. Now we are using something called bits per second. So 8 bytes has to be converted into 8 into 8. So it's going to be 64 bits. So it's the formula should be 64 bits divided by 100 Mbps. So if you want to convert this into bits, which means 100 into 10 raised to 6 bits per second. Okay, this is how we should calculate the transmission delay. So please remember, it's a elementary school problem anyway, but we should know which kind of unit is used in the denominator and the numerator to find out the propagation transmission delay. And similarly, when you talk about the propagation delay, you got the formula of D by S. Okay, okay, so you got the propagation delay. It's going to be D by S, where D stands for distance. Okay, it could be meter or kilometer. You have to find out. Then this is S. No, S normally talks about the speed of the link. The speed generally will be given. They may give like this: 3 into 10 raised to 8 meter per second. Okay, so it could be like that. All right, but you should find out what is the actual value. Sometimes it may be 3 into 10 raised to 5 kilometer per second. Okay, if it is in kilometers. So please find out the unit of the denominator and the numerator and find out. Now propagation delay is calculated in terms of distance and the speed of the link, which is normally the speed of the light. If value is not given, kindly note, if the value is not given, you remember, you will do this formula. Okay, it is 2 into 10 raised to 8 meter per second. By default you will use, unless otherwise specified. Okay, and but the other one is transmission delay. If you look at it talks about L by R. Okay, here the length of the packet or the size of the packet matters, and also the bandwidth of the link. But for the propagation delay, the distance between the source and the destination, or distance between the first router and the second router, and the speed of the propagation or the speed of the link matters. All right, please remember these two are exclusive. All right, so you cannot confuse. Sometimes the question may be like this: they may give you L, they may give you R, they may give you D, they may give you S. Please remember, they may not use this symbol also. They simply say the length of the link or the distance between router 1 and router 2 is 100 km. Then you should understand it is the length. Okay, and I'm sorry, they may, you should remember it is distance. Okay, and they may say the size of the packet is 80 bytes, then it is the length of the bit, length of the packet in bits, which means 160 bits. Okay, you should find out, and the question could be very simple, like they may give all the four parameters, and the question could be calculate the propagation delay. Now you should know what is, whether D by S is the propagation delay or L by R, right? So you can't be confused. And there could be another question on that. They may ask you by giving all these values to find out the total delay, or in other words, internet delay. All right, so very simple, you add these two, you calculate the propagation delay and you calculate the transmission delay. That will give you the exact answer. Be careful when you are adding. Sometimes the transmission delay may be in millisecond, the transmission delay may be in seconds. So seconds and milliseconds has to be added correctly. If the second is, it is 10 second, millisecond is 8, you should remember it is 10.008 seconds. Please remember, all it takes is your attention to the details in the given in the questions. Otherwise the formula is just a division, which normally, our your siblings are in the schools, school children are doing. I know you can take it up. So these are all the things about delay. And one more thing I wanted to talk when we speak about the delay, we also have learned a word called traffic intensity. For that, you got the formula as LA by R. Hope you remember this. Here, L, very similar to the previous case, talks about the length of the packet in bits, or bits per second, and A is the arrival rate. What is that arrival rate? It talks about how many packets are coming. In case if 15 packets are coming per second, now the arrival rate is 15 per second. Right? So length is bits per second, bits, arrival rate is per second, bandwidth again R is bits per second. So traffic intensity is normally a whole number because it's a ratio between B by S and bits per second and bits per second. And we know the traffic intensity, if it is greater than or equal to 1, then the queuing delay increases and there will be packet loss. I'm sure you should remember this from graph. This is not the graph. This should be. So as the traffic intensity increases, the delay increases, and after a certain point of time, after the breakdown point, then there will be packet loss. Okay, so you always should design such a way that the traffic intensity should be maintained much lesser than 1. That is the recommended design. All right. So we have spoken about this one end-to-end delay. Throughput, I know you can talk about throughput. It's the number of bits which are received at the receiver, with respect to how many bits are sent. Okay, that's about the throughput. Next comes is our protocol layers. I think we should spend a little time in protocol layers. If I ask you how many layers in the TCP/IP, you can say it's 5. In the OSI reference, it is 7. We also can try to recall what are those 7 layers. Uh, at the application, you have got application layer, presentation layer, session layer, transmission layer or transport layer, network, data link, and physical. Right. So these are the 7 layers of OSI reference model, and we all know these 2 are generally eliminated to get the remaining 5 internet protocol stack. All right. So we know that our network protocol stack. So it is very important for us to remember and recall the different layers here. The first one is the application layer, which normally interacts with the human being. Please remember. So the application layer is the layer where human beings are interacting, whether it could be your web application or file transmission application or email application. It is the application layer where you interact. So you have got humpty number of protocols in the application layer. You can recall some of them. You got the hypertext transfer protocol, file transfer protocol, simple mail transfer protocol, domain name system, IMAP, okay, post office protocol, SSH, Telnet, SNMP. All right. So these are some of the protocols. Of course, the list goes on and on. So all these application layer protocols are housed in the application layer, and it also interacts with the human being, as you know. Then comes your transport layer. By when you talk about the transport layer, it is responsible for end-to-end communication. These are all the keywords you should remember when you talk about the transport layer. So end-to-end communication. You also have something called process ID. Okay, a process id or a port number. In other words, process id is given something called port number. So the and when you the very specifically about the transport layer, I have spoken about end-to-end communication, end-to-end delivery. The reliability is another important thing about the transport layer. As we progress, and we can talk a lot about transport layer. Probably we have a separate session for transport layer even today as well. And very famous protocols in transport layer are TCP and UDP. If I ask you compare and contrast transmission control protocol and user datagram protocol, I hope you'll be able to give at least 5-6 differences, because we have spoken about them very recently. That's about the transport layer, right? And this transport layer, as I said, contains something called port number, and every of the application layer protocol is connected or is using one of the well-known ports. Okay, so HTTP uses port number 80, DNS is using 53, SMTP is 25, FTP uses 20, 21, POP3 uses what is POP3? I think 110, and SSH I forgot, Telnet I think 23, SNMP 63, and so on, right? So these are all the different port numbers which are associated with all these application layer protocols, right? So this application layer corresponds to the transport layer, where transport layer is the layer below the application layer, and hence it provides service to the application layer protocol. Then comes in the line, we have got the network layer. So if someone tells you network layer, suddenly this famous person should flash in your mind. Okay, that is called router. So router is running in the network layer, and when you what are the two specific or important jobs of network layer is routing and addressing. We also will speak about IP addressing, IPv4 addressing, IPv6 addressing, interoperability between IP addressing, IPv4 and v6 addressing shortly. But otherwise, addressing is important thing, and routing. In other words, it is called as forwarding. Routing and forwarding, addressing, these are the important things about network layer. The very famous protocol in network layer is your IP, which is a connection-less protocol, whereas transport layer contains TCP, which is a connection-oriented, UDP is a connection-less protocol. Then comes to the data link layer, you got something called frame. Okay, so keywords about data link layer is frame. What are the other things? MAC address. Okay, MAC address is the keyword associated with data link layer. Very specifically, data link layer adds trailer for error correction. Data link layer is the only layer which adds the trailer to the data for error CRC. CRC is the very important and interesting calculation, cyclic redundancy check, which is done by the data link layer for error correction and detection. Okay, data link layer does the error correction as well, not only error detection. And it adds the trailer. Every other headers, every other layers, they add only the headers, but it's only the data link layer which adds header and trailer. And the data here are called as frame. Please recall what is the name of the data network at the transport layer as well. Right, moving on the physical layer, yes, you have got your cabling standards, how to interpret zeros and ones, what is the Winchester encoding, and all this, electrical pulses generally, and also your cables and standards are coming under the physical layer. So now we got in a nutshell um, all about the 7 layers of OSI reference model. We missed presentation and session. Presentation layer is responsible for your compression, decompression, coding, encoding, what else? Security, encryption, decryption. This all comes under presentation layer. Then you got your session layer for session management and dialog control, okay, which we have already spoken. All right, good. So we have spoken about the protocol layers as well. So principles of network application architecture, it's all okay, but generally it talks about the different applications at the sender as the receiver. Okay, the intermediate devices like routers or switches are not going to bother about these application layer protocols. And now, very important things here are the transport layer services which are available to application. Okay, so reliability, flow control, congestion control, connection oriented. So all these are the supporting mechanisms which are given by the transport layer to the application layer. And we very specifically, it's important for us to recall about the web and HTTP and the related stuff. So I scroll down here. We have still long way to go. 15 minutes more. Okay. Web and HTTP, it is for the web application. The hypertext transfer protocol uses port number 80, and it has got two things. One is persistent and non-persistent connections. What is the case of persistent connection? If you got the client and the server, this is a web client, this is web server. We know being a HTTP protocol, it uses the TCP in the transport layer. So TCP normally goes for connection establishment, which uses three-way handshake protocol. So this is the three-way handshake protocol. First message of TCP, second message of TCP, third message of TCP goes with first message of HTTP. I call it as piggyback. We know about that. So if the client has to fetch one object, okay, that object is a HTML file, for instance. So if this particular HTML file has to be fetched, in the case of persistent, non-persistent, a connection is established, and then the request is going and the response is coming. So this whole time we call it as RTT, stands for round trip time. Okay, it's round trip time. If you want to fetch one object from the source, from the server to the client, you at least need to have two RTTs. Okay, one RTT is for TCP, the other RTT is for HTTP. Okay, and after that connection close, all these things, let's not worry because we have received from the other side. What will happen if you want to fetch two objects? Now what happens after this is done, your connection is closed. Okay, then to fetch the second object, again a TCP connection has to be established, and then the HTTP packet has to go and come back. Now it goes to another two RTTs. So in order to fetch two objects from this server to the client, you require four RTTs in the case of non-persistent TCP connection. What shall we do in the case of persistent TCP connection? In persistent TCP connection is a persistent HTTP, I'm sorry. The TCP will not be cut off, connection will not be closed until transmission is done. So we don't require this TCP connection if you go for a persistent. So one RTT, second RTT, three RTT. So one RTT is removed to fetch two packets, two objects from the server to the client. We also have pipelining. Okay, pipelining normally comes with persistent TCP connection. So pipelining goes. So first, when you fetch only one object, pipelining doesn't make difference. But if you go for two objects to be fetched, pipelining will be able to do it in the same two RTTs. If you don't have pipeline, you have to go for three RTTs. If you have pipelining to fetch two objects, you can do it in two RTTs. So this round trip time you should have in your mind generally about the TCP persistent and non-persistent. TCP, HTTP message format, please remember about the message format. You got your get, put methods and other stuff, coding methodology, coding standards, encoding, decoding standards. browser, what is the browser which is used, when the data is fetched, object is fetched, what is the age of the object, when the object was created in the server. So all these things you can remember if you look at the HTTP message format once again. Then cookies, yes. So cookies are small data packets, small packets which are set by the server at the client side, which will be stored. So once you browse the same page once again, now the cookie also is taken up. Now the server can understand by checking its database that this is the same person who has already visited me. Okay, that's about cookies. Though there are a lot of um, negative talks about cookies, it is giving a lot of benefits as well. So web caching, I have spoken about this web caching by using a small petty shop. Hope you remember that small petty shop and a wholesale market. You are here and you go to this person, ask for something that is not available. He goes and fetches some 10 such objects. So when you go next, he delivers from him. So this reduces the delay here, right? So this is the web caching. The other name is proxy server. So HTTP proxy server is placed. It also reduces the traffic and the access in the internet. So we also have done some calculations. You got the internet, um, you got the university or institution link, you got the server here, okay, and you are connected with a machine with the router, and then you all have the personal computers here. We have calculated how much time does it take. The speed of this link is 100 megabits per second, for example. This could be 10 megabits per second. So how much time it is getting delayed when you have the packets every time fetched from the actual server. So what can you do to solve it? We have learned it. All right, so this all about proxy server and other things. Due to want of time, I go quickly on that. um, this also leads you to read. Then you got the file transfer protocol, famous application layer protocol to transfer the files. You got two port numbers 20 and 21. 20 and 21. 21 is for control, 20 for data. Data and control connections are out of band. I have spoken about this yesterday also. And you have got the messages and replies. What is the meaning of 221? What is the meaning of 400? What's the meaning of 441? All right. So these all are used when you talk about the file transfer protocol, right? Then email, electronic mail in the internet. When you talk about electronic mail, you should remember about uh, a client email application here, a server or the receiver here. Let me say this is the sender and he is the receiver. Okay, you got the servers in between, right? You got the mail user agent, mail transfer agent, mail delivery agents. Please remember them. And there is a communication here. It uses TCP anyway. You got the simple mail transfer protocol running here. Between the server, it should be simple mail transfer protocol. From the server to the client, it should be post office protocol. That is mail delivery protocol. You got the mail user agent here, mail delivery agent here, and the mail transfer agent, mail transfer agent, mail user agent, and mail transfer agent. Okay, these all the different agents which you have got, and also the different protocols which we have. So you should remember which protocol is to be used where, right? So these things you should remember. Moving on, yes, we have spoken about SMTP. You can check with HTTP. HTTP is a stateless protocol, whereas SMTP and FTP, they are stateful protocols. HTTP is a pull protocol, whereas the email applications are push protocol. So POP3 and IMAP, please read about this. IMAP helps you to create directories at the client side. So deleting arrangements are very easy here. Okay, that's about that. Then comes the DNS, so domain name system. It's a distributed database. I'm sorry, I think I may take another 2-3 minutes of your time. So it's a distributed database. You got hierarchy of server, you got the root DNS, then you have got top level domains, then you got the authoritative machines, authoritative DNS. So at different levels you have got com server, that is all TLD servers, com server, AU server, education server, net server, and those things. And mainly we have to know that there are four kinds of resource record: type A, type MX, type CNAME, and type what are the four types? Type A record, you got type NS, MX, and CNAME. There are four kinds of resource records. Resource record request and the response messages are same format in DNS. It uses 53. It uses UDP in the transport layer protocol. I know I'm going a little fast, but we have to wind up the things. There are two specific lookup process in the DNS. If this is your client machine, wants to know the URL, wants to know the IP address of a machine, you have got the rule and authoritative. If the request goes here and then it request comes here, then comes here, goes back and comes back, this is called recursive. Or otherwise, request goes, comes here, then request goes, come here, request goes, comes here, then it is iterative. Okay, so you should remember the recursive and iterative. We know about the DNS resource records as well. Yeah, I'm going a little fast. So SSH and yes, SNMP, I have given the demonstration also. Please read about them. You also have submitted assignments on Secure Shell earlier. Okay, then comes the transport layer. Transport layer is the layer which provides service to the application layer, but it receives service from the network layer. And network layer, you got your internet protocol stack, which is a connectionless protocol. You build a TCP or UDP on top of it. Multiplexing and demultiplexing, you remember, you have got the socket where the IP address and the combination of port number creates the socket. The server may be running in more than one socket. The client will connect with that correctly to that particular socket so that it will be demultiplexed and the data will be delivered to the proper application which is running in the application layer. That's about connection oriented and connectionless multiplexing. Please give some time for that as well. Then UDP is the connectionless transfer protocol. We know about that. UDP segment structure has got only 4 fields: source port, then you got the destination port, length, I remember. Then you also have got the checksum, and then the actual data. So very simple structure for your UDP segment structure. So where port number is of 16 bits in size. So this is the well-known port numbers and the FML port numbers, registered port numbers and other things. So the next one is the UDP checksum. I think I can wind up on time. UDP checksum, you should know how to calculate UDP checksum. Suppose you have got two words which are normally in 16 bits, but I just take some 8 bits. Okay, 0 1 0 1. Okay, 0 0 1 0 1 1. Okay, this is one word. It should be 16 bit, but for example, I take quick one. Maybe 0 0 1 0 1 0 like this. Okay, so these are the two words. Assume that if these are the two words given, how will you calculate the checksum? We have learned it earlier. I have to add these two bitwise. So 1 plus 1, 1 0. So I put 0 here. 1 plus 1 again 0. Then 1 0 here. 0 0 0 0 1. Have I made it right? Yeah. So 1 plus 1 1 0. Then 1 here. 0. Then 1 goes here. 0. Then 0 here. 0 here. 0 here. Okay. This is what your summation of these two. But how can you calculate checksum? You have to take one's complement. Please remember, one's complement you have to take to calculate the checksum, which means flipping the bits. That's it. So this will be your checksum answer, not this. This is the checksum, because in a hurry, if you are calculating, you should not think that this is the answer. This is supposed to be the answer. That's about UDP checksum. I think we have only one more topic to be talked again. That is the TCP header. It's imperative, very important for you to remember. But important fields are your source port number, destination port number. You have got your acknowledge number. You got your sequence number. Then length, you have got something called reserved available. Then the flags. Okay, you got the checksum, urgent pointers. Urgent pointer is there. I think checksum will be here. You got the receive window for congestion for flow control, receive window, and the options field and the data. Okay, so the whole length normally is going to be 32 bits. Okay, it is 32 bits in size, and you got 16 plus 16. Acknowledge number is of 32 bits. Sequence number is of 32 bits. Receive window 16 bits. Checksum will be here. 16 bits. Urgent pointer 16 bits. Header length. Okay, checksum. And you got something called reserved, which is not used. 6 flags. which are urgent, finish, you should remember. All right. So this is what the whole things which you are going to have the examination for the computer networks. All right. So I have taken 1 minute extra than the specified time. Hope I have ran through almost every of the topic. So I stop sharing and I also go back uh, and I stop recording.